Om Gyannatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Nam Shrishtam Manumapi Satchiputram Matraswarupam Rupam Tasya Grajamuru Purim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhikamadhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratitha Kripaya Shri Gunam Tannatasmi Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Male Ratnamaladhyate Nirajita Padapankajanta Haji Mukta Kulairupashyamanam Paritashram Harinam Samshriyami Naripita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalahum Shamarpaitamunnatojvalarasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sundripitaham Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Janulambita Bujjo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Takshu Vishwambaro Dijavaro Jugadharmapal Ande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataru Ladini Shakti Swarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pradhanaya Gadadhara Namostate He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahine Kripaya Nijapadabja Dashanmayam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadhalakshaye Shiptashtakamaditarangamadhye Kripam Sharanam Prapanam Brinde Namaste Sharanarvindam Brinde Namaste Sharanarvindam Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Gadadhar ji ki jai, Shri Radha Govind ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Gaur Preman. So, Pranam, good evening to all of you again. Here we are getting together one more time. One last time, at least this time in the evening. One more time tomorrow morning. And we have ISTAGOSTHI today, questions and answers, in which you are invited to present any questions, any topics you might like to hear, to speak about. In this spirit of 50-50%, we will try to make our contribution also. So we already have one question from today in the morning, from Sonia, right, Sonia? Mm-hmm. So we can start with that, and then if there are any other questions, we have some time today. So
you feel a little embarrassed to ask it anyway. I wonder how comes that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says in that verse, if you offer me with devotion, leave a flower, water, or fruit, doesn't mention milk or butter.
So what to do?
What to do? We should be in Krishna's shoes. I would like to know if
Yeah.
Because sometimes speaking with lots of vegetarian devotees, say, "Oh, Krishna loves so much butter, milk, and milk products that you should have them, etc., etc., etc."
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that many times as well. So yeah, there are a few considerations to have. To begin with, this verse also tries to establish some contrast between the idea, as we mentioned in this verse, which is 9th chapter, verse 26, Patram pushpam phalantoyam jame bhakti prayachati tadham bhakti upaharitam ashnami prayatatmana. So Krishna is saying, as we mentioned the other day, in singular, Patram pushpam phalam toyam. One leaf, one fruit, one flower, one water. Sorry? But twice bhakti. But the first part that he has one, he is referring to the most easy and possible available things you may get, like water. I mean, maybe nowadays it's getting more difficult to get water, but at that time, water, leaf, flower, fruit, it's relatively available, more than butter, which may require a whole process to get that, may not be available at any moment, at all times. So the idea of the verse also is, even if you offer me even one of those easily available things, I will accept that. Of course, bhakti. But he's when referring to the material to be offered, he's referring to the most available possible, easier possible thing you can get in the smallest external even measure, singular. One drop of water. Try to imagine. If you offer one drop of water with bhakti, so satisfied, if you will. Of course, at the same time, he will ask for more bhakti. But the point is that when mentioning those items and not mentioning milk, butter, which sometimes may not be available. Not everyone has a cow. No. But generally everywhere you can get or water or one leaf or one fruit. That's relatively, comparatively more available. So that will be, I would say, the main reason why other preparations are not mentioned. Many other preparations are not mentioned. Any vegetable is mentioned there. Potatoes are not mentioned. Pasta, pizza is not mentioned. Or so many things that we may prepare offered on a daily basis to Thakurji. So it doesn't mean that only you can offer Krishna those 4 items in the smallest possible measure, but just himself, he's mentioning, I don't care so much for the size, the quantity, but I care for bhakti. As we say, Krishna's diet is based on bhakti. He becomes hungry for bhakti. So that's the one side. But of course, yes, on another side, sometimes we will hear devotees saying, but Krishna loves milk products so much, so we have to offer them those milk products. But sometimes the implication of that, so we're speaking also with Krishna Chandra Prabhu, and I think on the beginning first day, sometimes the idea behind that is more, I love those milk products. So I need a way to justify my attachment to those things. And Krishna loves them. So we should offer them those things. But the real thing is then, when the offering is finished, here I am, ready. Because Krishna Chandra also told me, well, if Krishna loves that so much, you can offer to Krishna one little glass of milk every day. Because it's for him, right? But when we say, no, we have to offer like 3 liters of sweet rice and ice cream. So the idea is we are mostly included in the plan more than Krishna, basically. So it's a fine line that requires also some honesty from our side. How much I'm really concerned with Krishna's pleasure, or I'm using Krishna's tongue to justify my tongue, if you will. He likes milk so much, I have to offer them. But actually, you are waiting for the time of the offering to be ready and jump into that. Because I was telling, we're laughing with Krishna Chandra that day because I say, well, there's this example of Raghava Pandit, who was an associate of Mahaprabhu. And he was, he will cook. It is said that Mahaprabhu always will manifest every single day on 3 places.
Actually, the incarnation of the Nishta, which we had this morning,
Again, sorry?
is the incarnation of the Nishta.
Raghava Pandit.
Yes.
Okay.
We just spoke about him this
Okay.
morning.
Here he's coming again. Yeah, Haribo. So it is said that Mahaprabhu will manifest always in 3 moments. Every time Haridas Thakur is chanting, Mahaprabhu becomes present. That's once. And the second one is every time Nityananda Prabhu is dancing, Mahaprabhu will manifest there. And the third one is every time Raghava Pandit is cooking, Mahaprabhu will manifest and eat all the offering. So Raghava Pandit had this standard. Every single day he will cook for Mahaprabhu, even though he was not physically in his house, but he will offer the bhoga, and he will wait for Mahaprabhu to come and empty the whole plate. Because that's what's supposed to happen, right? Krishna has to be so satisfied that we'll empty the whole thing. And so that he will have that standard. So every single day like this. They say that there was one day that there was an exception to that, which was the famous Keturi festival, in which say that Narottam Das Thakur was performing Sankirtan at one point, and that Sankirtan became so ecstatic that Mahaprabhu couldn't resist and appear there, along with his associates. And Raghava Pandit that day was like, I'm offering this to Mahaprabhu, but the plate's still full. So what's going on? So then he found about what was actually going on. Mahaprabhu manifested in the Kirtan and Keturi. That's why he's not coming to my house to eat the offering. So we say, but we are not coming to eat my offering. What's going on? They say, we will go after the festival in the evening to your house and we will empty everything. We will empty everything. Okay. But my point is that his standard was Krishna has to empty the plate. If that's not happening, the offering was a failure. So now, again, let's go to the example of, okay, Krishna likes milk so much, so I'm offering 3 liters of sweet rice to him. But what if Krishna eats the 3 liters of sweet rice after that? Will you be happy and celebrating that? Or you will be saying, oh no, there's nothing for me. Krishna, you should just eat this little glass. That was for you. The 2 3/4 remaining liters were actually for me and my devotee. So someday Krishna may empty the whole plate just to test you. So I'm telling all this in relation to this idea, that sometimes we may say Krishna loves milk products. No, Krishna loves bhakti. So yes, of course, in the context of the Leela, he appears in the Braj. It's a cowherd community, lots of milk products. But as we spoke the other day, that milk represents affection. So that's the milk he loves. The milk of Prem, not milk. So the more is Prem and love in your offering, Krishna will take in that. I'm praying to become thousands of calves and friends to satisfy his thirst, as he did in Brahma Vimohan. But if not, we should be careful not to be justifying our own desire to taste some things and putting Krishna as an excuse in between that. No? We don't want to use Krishna as an excuse for our sense enjoyment.
Or use the industrial milk for preparations and cheeses, and saying that, well, the cows who have product that will be released and so on,
Of course, if you are such a magnanimous devotee that has such power of bhakti to deliver all these cows, there's place for that. But the point is, who is that person? No, that's not so easy available. So again, one shouldn't justify that like, no, we are sending all these cows to Vaikuntha by offering this. Let's see, let's see which is what's going on inside of you, And of course, also Krishna is in that same verse, Prayatatmana, Asnami Prayatatmana. Also, that means, and some commentaries to the verses say, Krishna saying, whatever you offer, try to offer with good consciousness. And some commentators have said good consciousness also means concern for the quality of the product you're offering. Like, for example, you can have like a garden here and grow your own vegetables, and from the very beginning of the process you are investing your bhakti in the seed, in the land, in the water. That's a whole, and when you make the offer, that's you are trying to invest the best possible consciousness. Again, that may not be possible for everyone, but one should be willing to try to do that as much, And sometimes some of these industrial products, you can say, I'm offering milk, but how much milk is in that milk? So there are many other things in between as well. So of course we could say Krishna is Baba Grahi Janardana. He will take the essence of the offering. Yes, but the essence of the offering, which is our attitude. So the essence of the offering sounds like, oh, he's so generous. He only takes the essence of the offering. But the question is, how much essence in the offering is there? That's challenging. I have to really be essentialist, so he won't become distracted by any formality in the offering. He will go right to the essence.
So Maharaj, this means that if by mistake, not wanting to commit aparad, one would offer a product in which by mistake there would be something like a liquor, like alcohol, or meat, I don't know, a meat ingredient that even you don't know, but you offer that, with bhakti. What would he do?
What will whom? Krishna? He will take the bhakti. Yeah, of course. He won't take the milk, the meat, I say, the alcohol. He will take the bhakti. But of course, again, by mistake means I'm trying to become aware that everything is in place first, because it's very careful. We shouldn't be like complacent and lazy in, well, I don't know if this is legal or not, but Krishna, please take the essence of my offering. No, if something comes and you in some, I don't know, some circumstance that you are, I don't know, traveling or some situation that you cannot just, I cannot travel with my own organic garden everywhere around the world, I cannot just have my potatoes in my luggage and all that. Of course, generally I'm with devotees and they offer prasad, but in some specific circumstance, I have to buy something. Of course, I try not to buy any industrial thing, but extreme circumstance, you have to be careful that those things are as legal as possible. So also that's important to not be like lazy in the name of Krishna will take the bhakti in the offering, because the bhakti in the offering means my concern for doing things as best as possible. Anukulyasa sankalpa pratikulyasa vardhanam. The two first aspects of surrender, saranagati, are I will accept all that is favorable to bhakti, I will reject all that is unfavorable. So I will pay close attention to determine, is this favorable, is this not unfavorable? So, but again, yes, if out of some mistake that can happen, of course that Krishna will see. No, you wanted, you had the good proper intention, but you somehow were not able to see that detail and taking the essence of that. So Krishna has that generosity, but again, we shouldn't abuse his generosity. Like when Mahaprabhu is speaking about the generosity of Krishna. Of course, he's Krishna, but he's in the mood of a devotee of Krishna. So he's saying, if someone is putting tilak, one starts Om Keshavaya Namaha, Narayanaya Namaha, Madhavaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. So one starts thinking, okay, everything ends with Aya. So there comes the one here, and one may say Om Vishnaya Namaha. which is not technically correct.
Das ist nicht
Oh.
technisch korrekt.
It's Vishnave Namaha.
Das ist Vishnave.
But Krishna will see that and actually you meant Vishnave, right?
Vishnave
No.
hast du gemeint, oder?
You follow. Krishna will say, you were mistaken. That's wrong.
Einen Fehler gemacht.
That's not valid. He will say,
Das ist nicht-
actually you meant Vishnave, right?
du hast doch
You will say,
Vishnave gemeint.
yes, sorry. Okay, no problem. It counts like correct.
Das ist Vishnave.
So that's Krishna's mode. If we are naive or innocent in some details. Also, we should be willing to learn and to become properly educated about how to do things in a way that is pleasing to him. So something like that. It's clear?
Yes,
Sure?
yes.
But
No, I was thinking about this last thing that it seems like the Vrajavasis are very naive and very spontaneous, and they don't mind too much about rules and regulations
Yeah.
when they are with Krishna. So maybe to have a spontaneous bhakti love for Krishna doesn't include to follow all these, rules and regulations in like a military man,
oh yeah. Nobody spoke about military.
And so I don't know which.
Yeah. We practice devotional service, not military service. So there are rules, but we should understand that follow the rules is not something necessarily bad, but the intention of the rules is to give rise to love, to give rise place to love.
Yes.
So in the beginning, love will not flow like spontaneously from like it happens with the Vrajavasis. So we need to adjust our life in a certain way that gradually we are getting closer to that. So you spoke about naivete. No? You will see in the introduction to my book, you will read I speak about naivete there. I speak about the first naivete and a second naivete. I'm citing one French philosopher called Paul Ricard, and he speaks about the second naivete. So of course he's not speaking about Braja Lila there, but I kind of take his concept and use it in another context. So like the Kanishta Adhikari or neophyte devotee is kind of in his or her first naivete. No? You understand what's naivete? Yeah. Okay. So you are like, you don't have a very, some things are more sentimental, not very grounded.
Childish.
Yeah, like childish, immature, not bad intention, but just baby, no? Kindergarten, with your own ideas of things, still not an adult. So, and you don't have too much idea of many things, still a little bit narrow-minded. As we said the other day, only my guru is the best, this is the best, the only thing is this. But without bad intention, just like naive. And the second naivete is the type of simplicity that we find in Vrindavan, in the Vrajavasis. And they see Krishna in a very like natural way, organic way, like their friend or lover, and they are not thinking he's God and all these weird things. But in between one naivete and the other, we have to pass through some particular tunnel, if you will. And that could be more connected with the idea of becoming a Madhyam Adhikari, which means someone who develops some criterion, some maturity, who acquires some philosophical grounding, and who learns, as we spoke this day, to harmonize contradiction, differences, who develops this type of concern with growth and progress. So that's not so much naivete, if you will. It's about leaving the first naivete and becoming aware of certain things and developing some healthy discernment. I'm following some rules, but understanding why to follow those rules, not just follow the rule. Why? Follow the rule. Doesn't work like that. So Bhagavatam says that's niyama graha. which is one of the 6 things that will ruin your bhakti. No? Sorry?
Just a little thing. I'm experiencing living in the temple for some time.
Mhm.
I also saw that rules sometimes hurt. While following a rule might even hurt other devotees around you because you're so much focused into following rules and being in this thing that others got hurt because you thought this is the right thing, I need to do this, and actually you're hurting other devotees by being so narrow-minded and following something heavily.
Because the point is, we have to follow the rules, but one rule is to not hurt any devotees, and to please Guru and Vaishnava. So you have this rule, but you have these other rules, so you have to follow one rule without attacking the other ones. No, so and of course the main rule is whatever I'm doing is for the pleasure of Guru, Vaishnava, Krishna. So if my following of the rules is putting all the community in anxiety, what's the value of that? Which rule is that one? Rupa Goswami would say Niyama Graha. That's in the second verse of Upadeshamrita. He says, if you would like to ruin your bhakti, here I have 6 things, a 6-fold formula to destroy your bhakti. Of course, he's not promoting destroying bhakti. I'm just putting it in that way. So, Tyara Prayasascha Prayalpo Niyama Graha. Niyama Graha means you follow rules and regulations. There are 2 meanings to this. One meaning is you reject all rules and regulations and become like just whimsical, like I do whatever I like, however I like, I don't care for anything. So some anarchist, go the anarchist or something. Hopefully not. Another interpretation of Niyama Graha is you follow all the rules, but without understanding what's the purpose of them. So that's total. That's as bad as rejecting all the rules. So in both cases, you are not following the rules in essence. No, so they say in English, you have to follow the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. So we have to meditate. What's the purpose of this rule? Why? Why should I do that? How I should do that? So it invokes the proper inspiration. Like we were speaking the other day. Sometimes we hear you have the 4 regulative principles. Have you heard about those? Too many times. And many times when you hear these 4 commandments, if you will, many times we hear them presented in negative terms. In other words, do not do this. No eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no. You may get accustomed to understanding, okay, following rules means to not do some things. So you conceive the practice in terms of negativity, avoiding things instead of pursuing the positive side of that. So the real principle is not no gambling. The real principle is what Patanjali would call satyam. Be truthful. And gambling may be something counterproductive to being truthful. But it's not that it doesn't mean that if you do not gamble, you are being fully truthful. I don't go to the casino, so I'm fully truthful. That may help, but that's not the all in all. I'm purely vegetarian, so I'm totally non-violent. I'm the most compassionate person on earth because I'm vegetarian. I'm vegan. Sometimes vegans are pretty violent towards vegetarians, not towards the cows. But no, you have all the things. So the point is, no, you follow my point. So you follow one aspect of something that will help you in that, but that doesn't mean you are doing the whole thing. So the 4 regulative principles actually are about be truthful, be compassionate, be pure, be clean. And that's not only by not doing those 4 things. So many more things have to be done. So that's my point when I say following a rule. What's your understanding of that? You may think means to not do this. No, means that in 1%, but the bigger picture is to do this. Be truthful. And what does it mean to be truthful? doesn't only mean do not tell lies,
Und das ist eine kleine Sache.
no?
Nichts
But try to pursue truth
zu lügen,
as much as you can,
aber die Wahrheit zu verfolgen.
trying to be open and willing to receive new layers of revelation as much as you can, no matter how challenging that is, and so on. So you can see that from not going to the casino to this other extreme, there's a big difference. So my point is, sometimes we follow rules in a way that we not catch the spirit of it. So my point is, that's in between the two naivetes. We want to stop being Kanishta babies, if you will, and we would like to, at some point, enter the realm of Vrajavasis psychology. But we're gonna just like jump. You have to go through to this intermediate stage that invites you to think deeply and to harmonize things. That may be more complex, but it's in a way that dealing with all this, you have to deal with all this complexity. So you harmonize the complexity, you integrate the complexity, so you reach a higher synthesis, and you have a higher level of simplicity. So in Vrindavan, we find such a high level of simplicity, but also there's such a high level of integrated complexity there. Follow. When you read the purpose of our acharyas and they start to like take all that is actually going on in all these verses in the Braja Lila, wow, so many things are there. But in the Lila, the Vrajavasis are not thinking about those things. They are just carried by their affection. But there's so much complexity there. No? So much Aishvarya, if you want to put it like that. Complexity. And Madhurya, simplicity. So to have full Madhurya, you need full Aishvarya. So to have full simplicity, you need full complexity harmonized. So as we said the other day, the Vrajavasis do not follow all these rules, not because they do not want, but also because they cannot, because they have a certain emotion that is too much and they're scaring them. Like, for example, we generally have never heard how many rounds Rupa Goswami chanted per day. Probably he didn't even chant 16 rounds per day.
Maybe not even one.
Maybe not even one.
Vielleicht
So what to do? Problem. Why? Probably because, and it is mentioned here and there, that when he started chanting and just he pronounced half a syllable, he fainted. So no more rounds. So you follow. At the end of the day, you cannot ask Rupa Goswami, how many rounds did you chant today? Did you finish the 16 rounds? Say, well, sorry, I was 16 hours fainted because of ecstasy. I couldn't finish my rounds. No? That was the feeling of Haridas Thakur in a different way. Now, when he was about to leave his body, no, he was very old. He was chanting 3 lakhs per day. He was Namacharya. He will try and chant 192 rounds per day. So to make the calculation, that basically may take 27 hours per day to most. And the day only have 24. So at the end of his life, Mahaprabhu always will visit Haridas Thakur daily at Sithabakul, the place he was staying at Puri. So Mahaprabhu is looking at Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur looks a little bit like, So Mahaprabhu said, what's going on with you today? I'm sick, he said. You're sick, and do you know what's the sickness? You have the diagnosis? And he said, yes. What's that? He said, I cannot finish my prescribed number of rounds. Because he was so old, it was getting difficult for him to finish 192 rounds per day. Mahaprabhu said, you don't need to chant that much. You are already liberated. You are beyond all this. But Haridas said, no, don't cheat me, please. Similar with Sanatana Goswami at the end of his life. He will circumambulate Govardhan every day, even being very old. As we said the other day, that may take more than half an hour. That 6 hours. I'm being very old, probably 8, 9, who knows. And one day Krishna appears in front of Sanatana Goswami and says, Sanatana, you don't need to do this anymore. You are very advanced. You don't need to do that. Sanatana Goswami says, no, don't cheat me. I won't abandon my vow. Because he had a feeling, again, he was not just, I have to complete the number, military following, but he had he got the result of following the rule, if you will. Of course, he was Sanatana Goswami. So Krishna say, okay, let's make a contract here. So here you have this Govardhan Shila. I put my footprint, my flute marking, my stick marking, this size. You circumambulate this 4 times a day. And that's exactly the same as the whole Govardhan Parikrama. So you continue with your Govardhan Parikrama. But I'm also happy. So if you want, you can have darshan of that Govardhan Shila in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. So with some special dakshina, they can show you these markings of Krishna's feet and flute and stick. And sometimes the devotees circumambulate the temple 4 times, which kind of is the same of Govardhan Parikrama, which is nice, but also I think, but that was a contract with Sanatana Goswami. Before that, he did the full Parikrama every day for years. So I shouldn't take just this as a replacement. I don't need to circumambulate Govardhan anymore because now I can do it like in 10 minutes running or something. But anyhow, some stories regarding following rules and some deep feelings involved there. So
we can also say that the Vedas, who like presenting all the rules, they became gopis. So this means like integration of rules, and it went further. It's not the first. The gopis are surely not the first naivety.
I see the point. You're thinking about something else?
No, it's wonderful.
So anyhow, that would be the idea regarding this idea of first naivete, second one, and what's in between. So Vrajalila is second naivete, but so much complexity is harmonized there. So we have to go through that chapter as well. That will, and if we go through that chapter, we are really showing that how much we want to go to the Vrajalila actually. So we gave the example the other day of Raghavarma Chandrika, that someone who wants this milk sweet will get the cow, milk the cow, follow all the procedures and rules, but he has only one greed in mind. I want the rasagula. So the person is following all these rules, but only because he or she knows by doing that in a certain way, this will be the result, not by the rules in themselves. Because if not, you get attached to being a rule follower, and many times ego can be mixed in that. No? Again, following all the rules, waking earlier than anyone, chanting more than anyone, no more verses than anyone, all with numbers. and just more like that's more like a obsession with perfection. And that's more an obsession. That's ego. Ego is obsessed with perfection. Love is not obsessed with perfection. So we say, love will say, oh, you are imperfect, no problem, I love you nonetheless. But ego is, no, this has to be perfect, and also in external form. No? So we try to replace our internal imperfection with a carcass of external perfection. So nobody notices how imperfect we are inside. So sometimes behind that strict following of rules, there's tremendous fear of being discovered as a very tiny, fragile, vulnerable, imperfect being. This is a principle. This is a principle of conditioned life. You go in this world, everyone is trying to show their best face. Social media, everything is perfect, everything is nice. All my pictures are worked on with Photoshop and so on. perfect tilak. So in the devotional realm, we can kind of express the same thing, but being a very strict follower of rules, like showing like a very superficial carcass. I'm perfect, so nobody can tell me anything because I'm doing everything perfect. But behind that, again, there's so much fear, so much doubt, so much lack of trust. So that's not sustainable in time. In the long run, those strict practitioners probably will jump from that extreme of strictness to the other extreme and start to break all the rules, and because they were not doing that in a natural way. It was more a repressed thing or something. So we don't want that. Anyhow, something else. Here my mother is offering obeisances to his son, to her son. She always sits in the classes, and even though she doesn't speak English, but she's
She just wants your darshan.
I don't know if darshan or sudarshan, but anyhow, I have her blessing. So Namayanti.
Yeah, I was wondering, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there it's described how Vyasadeva was unsatisfied with, and by writing the Vedas, he felt that something is missing. So he asked his Gurudev, Narada Muni. So, and after all the story where Narada Muni is telling his story and so on, there's also described, and it also said, Vyasadeva, after writing then the Bhagavatam, he revised it and spoke it to his son. So he wrote it, then he changed it again and spoke it. Why did he change it again?
Okay, that's a good question. She's studying attentively the Bhagavatam. Do you understand the question? No? So I briefly reframe it. So Srila Vyasadeva, as we know, he's the compiler of the Veda, Puranas. The word Vyasa means compiler. So among the Puranas, there are 18 main Puranas. 6 Sattvic Puranas, 6 Rajasi Puranas, 6 Tamasi Puranas. So one of the Sattvic Puranas, if you want to call it Sattvic, the Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavat Purana. So we know from the Bhagavatam itself that after Vyasadeva finishes this titanic work, try to imagine that. Some people may write just a letter and be proud, oh, such a good letter I wrote. But Vyasadeva wrote the highest, biggest body of literature in the whole world. But he was crying. He was not celebrating. I did such a great thing. It's so incredible. He felt, I'm not satisfied with this. Somehow this was a failure. I've not done it in the proper way. Something is. I mean, if I would have done it perfectly, I would feel the confirmation in the form of satisfaction. But that's not happening. So that's an interesting point in itself. No, he's such a big person, but he has the integrity to accept. I've not done the whole thing yet. I'm dissatisfied. He's open for more. He's not saying I'm Vyasadeva. Nobody can tell me anything. Look all that I wrote. He just cried on one side, like, what's going on here? So as we know, it's a long story, but it's a very nice, important section of the Bhagavatam. Narada Muni appears, who is Vyasadeva's Gurudev, and he consoles him. Of course, he shares his own story, as Damayanti said, his previous life, and son of the maidservant, and how he became Narada Muni. But the context of the whole thing is to make an emphasis on the efficacy of bhakti. So the conclusion will be Narad Muni is telling Vyasadeva, chastising his disciple in a loving way. That's important also to clarify. If the Guru is chastising the student, is not in the spirit of revenge or personal frustration and just repress anger, and the disciple comes as like, when I'm throwing that on him. But it's affectionate and educational. So, of course, we call it chastisement, but we could call it like affectionate education. And he basically tells to Vyasa, you have not emphasized properly bhakti. You have written the Shastra in such a way that people will be misled as to the supremacy of bhakti. So you need to very clearly delineate the supremacy of bhakti in no uncertain terms. And in that context, we speak about Krishna and his Leela in detail. So that's when it is said that Narad Muni gives the instruction to Vyasa, enter into Samadhi and re-edit the Bhagavad Purana. Sometimes we hear about revised editions of certain books. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we know it, that's a revised edition of the Bhagavad Purana. Generally, we make this difference even in the name. The original one was the Bhagavad Purana, but after Vyasa's Samadhi is the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's an added feature to that, and now we will explain also what's the meaning, which one of the meanings of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, but my point is, Vyasa gives this instruction to Narada. Narada gives this instruction to Vyasa. Enter into Samadhi, which is interesting, no? Because generally you cannot just, okay, I'm there. But Vyasa was able to do that. And the Bhagavatam is written in that language, Samadhi Bhasha, which means the language of Samadhi. Bhagavatam is not written in Sanskrit. It seems it's written in Sanskrit on the surface. But in essence, it's Samadhi Bhasha, the language of Samadhi, the language of trance. So if you want to understand a book which is written in trance, the implication is you have to enter in trance yourself. You follow my point? Someone wrote something in Samadhi. The only way you will really understand what the author meant is by you entering that, accessing that Samadhi as well. If you don't enter Samadhi, you may just grasp some idea in maybe out of context. So my point is, it's not easy to study the Bhagavad, to enter the Bhagavad. As I always like to say, as we spoke this day, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a book to read. It's a reality to enter. And the entrance is not just I open the door and hello, I'm here. There's some password to access that. Shilaji Goswami will say the password is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Sayam. That's the Paribhas Sutra of the Bhagavatam. So this line gives access to the whole of the book. So once you understand that and the implications of that, what it means that Krishna is Supreme Swayam Bhagavan, you will enter the real Bhagavatam. So yes, the idea will be that Vyasa, before this crisis he had, he compiled one version of the Bhagavatam that we call the Bhagavad Purana, in which he somehow has not emphasized enough bhakti nor Krishna Lila. We don't know that version. It has been replaced by the revised edition. So what we know is the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is what came after Vyasa's trance.
nach der Trance
So,
von-
of course, we are not saying that the book was totally different,
Wir können nicht sagen, dass das Buch völlig anders war.
but certain emphases were presented in a very clear way.
Aber etwas war sehr ganz anders.
And if we try to study the Bhagavatam seriously, we will realize how expertly Bhakti is emphasized in each and every page of the Bhagavatam. How everything is presented in such a way as to very excellently point to Krishna Lila. The first 9 cantos building up, so we get to Vraja Lila, and then after the first, 39 chapters or something of Vraja Lila in the 10th canto, you have like 50 more chapters of Mathura and Dwarka Lila, which indirectly are pointing to the glory of Vraja Lila. Mathura and Dwarka Lila are all about Vraja Lila, by indirectly showing and creating a contrast. What's Vrindavan and what's Mathura and Dwarka done. And after going through Braj, you cannot avoid comparing. And the Bhagavatam itself depicts Krishna in Dwarka, but even in Dwarka, he's dreaming about the gopis and the Vrajavasis. He's physical in Dwarka in this expansion, but internally he's somewhere else. So all this Dwarka Lila is indirectly pointing back to Braj. And then we have Canto 11 and 12, which is like a reflecting back on the Vraja Lila, to see if we understood everything properly. So we have lots of philosophy with the Uddhava Gita. And then, of course, 12th canto is about Kali Yuga. And the whole Kali Yuga description, which may seem like not too much connected with Vraja Lila. Gradually, the 12th canto is building, till you reach the end of the canto, which starts to glorify Kali Yuga in the context of Harinam Sankirtan. Kalir dosha nidhi raja masti ek mahaguna tanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha paramjit. For example, one verse, no? When it is said, this age of Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Right? The dimension of the faults in this area is oceanic. Oceanic means if you're in the ocean, you look left, right, there's no beginning, no end, there's ocean everywhere. So in Kali Yuga, you look everywhere, someone is doing some fault or mistake. Or even if someone is not doing any fault, someone will be seeing some fault. So that's Kali Yuga. Welcome to Kali Yuga. But Asti Eka Mahaguna. But this is such a terrible situation. And the Bhagavatam describes for chapters how terrible Kali Yuga is. You kind of start to get like depressed and discouraged. Oh, what I'm doing here. And next is Asti Eka Mahaguna. But there's one great quality in this Kali Yuga, which is such a Mahaguna, a great quality, that it can counteract all this ocean of faults. And which is that quality? Kirtana Deva Krishnasya. By executing Krishna Kirtan, Mukta Sangha Parambrajat. You become free from all attachment, mundane attachment, and Parambrajat. You attain the highest realm. So in this way, the last canto is speaking about the glories of Kali Yuga, if you will. Kali is about Jayanti Arya. Great sages are praying to be born in Kali Yuga. At one point, the Bhagavatam starts to shift the description to that. First, it's saying this is a terrible thing. This is the worst possible place you can be. Era, the worst age. But then he starts to, but due to Harinam Sankirtan, great devas and personalities are trying to come here to become part of that Sankirtan. And the Bhagavatam reaches its final note, the very last verse, as we said the other day. Nama Sankirtanam Jasya Sarva Papa Pranasunam Pranamoduko Samanas Namami Harim Param. The Bhagavatam, the last verse of the Bhagavatam says, Nama Sankirtanam Jasya. I offer my pranam unto Nam Sankirtan. I fall at the feet of Mahaprabhu, another way of putting it. So the Bhagavatam concludes at the feet of Gaur Lila. which is another way of showing the highest reach of the Krishna Lila, at the highest point of the Vraja Lila, Gaura Lila manifests. In other words, at the high point of the Bhagavatam, which is about Vraja Lila, Gaur Lila begins. Chaitanya Bhagavat. My Guru Maharaj likes to say, we have Srimad Bhagavatam, and after writing Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva found, now I'm satisfied. But after a few moments, he kind of retired. Okay, I retired from being an author. I wrote a lot, so I will stop writing. I'm fulfilled with the Srimad Bhagavatam. But then he felt inspiration. But the Bhagavatam ended at the feet of Gaur Lila. So Mahaprabhu is coming. A whole extension of Vraja Lila is manifesting. I had to leave my retirement and write again about this. So Vyasa came as Vrindavan Das Thakur, who is the Vyasadeva of Gaur Lila. So from Srimad Bhagavatam, we go to Chaitanya Bhagavatam. It's another Bhagavatam. Again, the Bhagavatam that keeps being written. So in this way, we can see how very expertly in his Samadhi, Vyasa shared all the things. And there's a very interesting point of connection that with I wanted to close this reply, and maybe today's lecture. Do we have one copy of my book there?
Yes.
Can one bring one? Because I want to share one paragraph from there, because it's just a closing note, and I mentioned something. Oh, okay. That was quick. So regarding this, yeah, that was quick. Regarding this idea of Srimad. So I'll read slowly because this part is a little bit like poetic. So in this conclusion, I put the same. I put the following. This subtitle is Sri Gaur, the two Bhagavats and the jewels of Prem. It says, as has been shown, Vraja Prem descends straight from Golok and approaches us in the most generous way through the agency of the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat, both ultimately personified in the figure of Sri Gaur Krishna and his compassionate agents, the sadhus. The unrepayable gift could be compared to when a homeless person, by being in the right place at the right time, suddenly becomes rich without deserving it at all. That homeless person, by being in the right place and by being in the right place at the right time, suddenly becomes rich without deserving it at all. Without such a stroke of good fortune, our attempts can be compared with trying to acquire the Shamantaka or Kaustubha jewels by way of money, gold, or any other earthly gems. It doesn't happen. It's a different currency, as we say. These jewels, Shamantaka, Kaustubha, are rightfully enjoyed by Bhagavan and his entourage, and can be experienced by ordinary people only through some close friend of theirs. In other words, if someone has a contact with them, you can access. If not, you cannot go by yourself. Similarly, Bhakti is like a great transcendental jewel. Bhakti, and apart from the costless mercy of one of Bhagavan's nearest and dearest, the person Bhagavat, apart from that, there is no other way to obtain that precious touchstone. So this is one main point of the book, which is Bhakti is coming to us by the grace of Sadhu Sangha.
kommt durch die Gnade von Sadhu Sangha, das ist der Hauptpunkt.
And now comes this point that I want to make about Srimad
Jetzt
Bhagavatam.
kommt das über Srimad.
But this is an introduction to that. Similarly,
Ähnlicherweise,
the book Bhagavat,
das Buch Bhagavad
which comes to us through the person Bhagavat,
kommt von der Selbstreflexion,
is not an exception to this rule.
ist keine Ausnahme von dieser Regel.
And its very name bears witness of this.
Der eigentliche Name ist schon Zeuge davon.
As Gaudias,
Als Gaudias,
we embrace the Bhagavatam according to how Mahaprabhu himself embraced it.
so, wir nehmen das Bhagavatam so, wie es Mahaprabhu selber gemacht hat.
And the result of such an embrace
Und das Resultat von einem solchen Namen
has taken the form
hat die Form angenommen
of a very remarkable name,
von einem erstaunlichen Namen.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
While the term Bhagavatam
Also der Begriff Bhagavatam
denotes something related to or belonging to Sri Bhagavan,
es ist etwas, was in Beziehung ist zu Bhagavan.
the esoteric term Srimad
Srimad ist ein esoterischer Begriff.
points to Bhakti
Meint Bhakti.
in its ultimate expression
Das ist die letztliche Ausdruck
of,
davon,
of personified Mahabhav,
nämlich die personifizierte reine Gottesliebe, which is
which is
Srimati Radhika. Srimati Radhika.
Jai. Mahabhav Swarupini Srimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai. This Mahabhav
dieser Mahabhav.
implies divine madness,
Das bedeutet göttliche Verrücktheit.
and this represents the definitive converging point of the whole Bhagavatam.
Das ist der letztliche Punkt vom ganzen Bhagavatam.
In this way,
Auf diese Weise.
the word Srimad
Srimad
refers to the mad,
zu dem
madness.
Madness,
in Sanskrit madness is said mad,
Madness,
of Sri.
Das ist die Verrücktheit von Sri.
Sri is a name for Radha.
Und Sri ist eine Name von Sri, Mad.
So Sri Mad means the madness of Sri
Verrücktheit von Sri.
in her loving interaction with Bhagavan.
Nämlich in ihrem liebenden Umgang.
So Bhagavatam has to do with in relation to Bhagavan.
Das ist in
So
Bezug
Sri Mad Bhagavata means the madness of Radha in relation to Bhagavan Krishna. That's what the book is about.
Das ist darum geht es im ganzen Buch.
Therefore,
Oh.
therefore,
Deshalb,
we Gaudias,
als Gaudiya,
also sometimes called the Srimad Bhagavatam,
wir nehmen das Bhagavatam,
Radha Bhagavatam,
das ist Radha Bhagavatam.
because Srimad refers to her.
Srimad ist ja ihr, sie.
So another way of referring to it is Radha
Das
Bhagavatam.
ist Radha Bhagavatam.
But such a concept
Aber dieses Konzept
needs further development.
braucht ein bisschen weitere Ausdehnung.
And this is played out in the very apex of the Bhagavatam,
Und das ist ein Höhepunkt von Bhagavatam,
in which Sri Hari contemplates
wo Krishna selber meditiert,
Radha's Mahabhav
die riesige Liebe von Srimati Radha
and becomes greedy to taste it,
und wird begierig, das zu kosten.
thus giving rise to Gaur Lila.
Das ist der Beginn von Gaur-Lila.
We will speak tomorrow in the morning about that a little bit.
Am Morgen werden wir uns-
Highest point of the Bhagavatam is Rasa Panchadhyay, Rasa
Das
Lila.
sind die 5 Kapitel vom Rasa Lila.
And at one point, Krishna will pronounce a very important verse, which according to our Goswamis is, okay, here Krishna is making a vow to appear as Mahaprabhu to try to repay to the gopis.
Ein Gelübde als Chaitanya Mahaprabhu zu erscheinen.
So in other words, in the highest point of the
Am
Krishna
Höhepunkt
Lila,
von Krishna
highest point of the Bhagavatam,
am Höhepunkt von Bhagavatam,
Gaur Lila is exploding, appearing.
kommt die Explosion, das nennt man Gaur-Lila.
In this Gaur Lila,
In diesem Gaur-Lila
Braja Krishna
ist der
is
Vrindavan
bathing
Krishna,
himself
badet sich selber
in the glory of Radha's experience
in der Herrlichkeit von Radharanis
to, s-
Erfahrung.
to such a point
Zu seinem Punkt,
that her Mahabhav
dass ihre Mahabhav
becomes his,
wird seine,
her madness
ihre Verrücktheit
becoming his own.
wird wie seine eigene.
It is in the midst of this divine madness
Inmitten dieser Verrücktheit,
that Sri Gaur Sundar relishes Radha's Mahabhav.
dass Gosunda Radharanis Mahabhav kostet.
You follow the idea? But the experience
Aber die Erfahrung
overflows from him,
fließt wie rüber
splashing whoever is nearby,
und spritzt überall hin, was noch
including undeserving passers-by, such as us.
zufällige Vorbeilaufende wie wir, wird auch bespritzt.
This is just like the wife of a rich man.
Das ist wie die Frau von einem reichen Mann,
Who goes mad
die wird einfach verrückt. Ja.
and suddenly throws all her jewelry from her rooftop.
Und wirft plötzlich die
Diamonds,
und
emeralds,
wirft alle
rubies.
Diamanten einfach vom
She goes mad somehow. She starts to throw all her jewels, there,
wirft sie das alles weg.
making even the poorest of people rich,
Macht selbst die Ärmsten reich,
although they have no merit whatsoever.
obwohl sie gar nichts
Merciless
verdient haben.
mercy.
Exactly. So the homeless person was just walking,
Das war so ein Heimatloser.
some diamond fell on him.
Und so Diamanten laufen drauf, so.
And when her millionaire husband sees this,
Wo der Millionär
oh, my wife went crazy and she's throwing all these jewels.
und wirft alle Juwelen weg.
He has no problem at all,
Hat er kein Problem damit.
since he knows the extent of his own wealth.
Er kennt ja
He has so much more wealth. Yeah, that's not too much. He can continue doing that. No problem.
Sie können da noch ein bisschen weiter.
Correspondingly,
Und auf ähnliche Weise.
the Srimad Bhagavatam
Srimad Bhagavatam
ultimately speaks to us about the mad of Sri for Bhagavan, the madness of Radha for Bhagavan, in which all her jewels of bhakti are indiscriminately delivered in the madness of Mahabhav to one and all, in the topmost expression of compassionate love, known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Needless to say, we are those most fortunate redeemed paupers, like homeless people, in this magical story. Srimad Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So that's the conclusion of the book, basically. But some words in connection to the idea of Srimad and this revised edition from Bhagavad Purana to Srimad Bhagavatam. So we see how much came after Vyasa Samadhi, no? How much new layers of content were revealed in trance there. No? Okay.
In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this verse quoted, Veda Vyasa Naivete va.
Yeah. Ved me Sukuveti.
Aham Vedmi. And maybe this is spoken by Shiva.
Yeah.
And maybe Vyasadeva understands Bhagavatam, maybe not. And this is like what you just said. And because Krishna, Vyasa, is like a form of Lord, but he is still in the mood of Vishaya Bhagavan. So he will not get access in that mood. He needs to change the perspective, like Ashraya Bhagavan, to understand it. Because if it's Radhika's glories, how can he understand it? So,
yeah, thanks so much.
Just,
Hey, similar note we can make with Krishna appearing as in Asraya's side as Mahaprabhu and approaching the Bhagavatam in such a unique way by adopting that particular side of the equation, for sure. And of course, hearing that from Asraya Lambana personified in the form of Radha's Gadadhar Pandit in Guru.
Warum versteht das nicht wirklich? Weil er ist noch eine Inkarnation von Krishna. Er ist in der Stimmung des höchsten.
Maharaj, in Samadhi, can you read?
Das ist Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Read. No need to read in Samadhi. Whatever comes, that will be the book will come to life. Of course, I'm not saying that if you're in Samadhi, you cannot take a book. My point is that won't be technically called reading, but you will be really accessing the ultimate level of purpose of the book. I mean, in Samadhi, there are no more books. You won't feel this is a book. No? This is a portal. So Samadhi means that everything is a portal, not only the book. No? The glass, the cartel, everything is showing so many layers of Udipan, and of course it's difficult to put that into words and imagine what's that about, because Samadhi is beyond imagination. it's a gift of grace. So it's not that you cannot force samadhi. Srila Sridhar Maharaj will say again that he said, if you want to enter there, the door is closed, and Krishna has the key, and he's on the other side of the door. So you're gonna just force your entrance here. Excuse me. You just kind of like and cry at the door. But it's not so much. And he said, even if you try to exercise your imagination at the maximum degree, your imagination, as wild as it may be, is still limited, because you can only imagine about things you have experienced till now. You cannot just enter divine revelation by imagination. So yeah, the way to enter samadhi is actually to go beyond all these different platforms of thinking, this discrimination, imagination, all these mental, intellectual functions. Of course, it's not just I press a button and I'm there again. So in some level, I have to use those functions properly. As we say these days, we have to use our head as much as we can, so we can realize the limits of the head. No? So you have reason capacity. So don't be irrational in the name of being transcendental. No need to think. We are transcendentalists. Siddhanta vali chitta nakara alas. Krishna says, you have to think deeply about the things. And then he says, nakara alas. Don't be lazy. He says that. Don't be lazy. Use your head. But as my Guru Maharaj likes to say, use your head to soften your heart. That's the use of the head. Because if you don't use your head to soften your head may make your heart stone. But if you properly use your head, your own head will show to you its limits. Okay, I can accompany you till this part of the journey. From this on, I cannot enter there. No? Head, intellect, words, you need samadhi. You need to surrender to this transrational practice and depend on mercy. So, but we will need to conclude about to prove the limits of these tools. So we develop further impetus about the need of a transrational practice, because my rational faculties are limited. So only with this logic and different tools, apratishthana means you end up nowhere, like in a limbo. No? If you think too much without softening your heart, we know that there are many people who just like to use their intellect for its own sake, and they will reach conclusions like, we do not exist, or everything has no meaning, and this type of like fractured conclusions about reality, because they are engaging in an overdose of too much thinking. So we have to think, but we also have to know what are the limits of thinking. There was once, my Guru Maharaj likes to quote this. Once one devotee went to Srila Prabhupada. I say, Srila Prabhupada, I was studying the Krishna book, 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and I read that this time of the day Krishna is doing pastimes in Nandagram, and at this other time of the day he's going to Govardhan, and from there he's moving to whatever, Radhakunda. And I made the calculation, he said, about the distances of each place. How much does it take to get there? It doesn't work. It's not working.
Really?
So actually hundreds of kilometers.
Yeah. So Prabhupada gave different answers in different time, because there was not only once that the devotees came with this type of things. But once he gave one transrational answer, he will say, We say basically Vrindavan is like a lotus. We always hear, no? Vrindavan is like a lotus. So each one of the different lila stalis or praise of pastimes are like petals of the lotus. So he will open his hand like this, no, and show. So if Krishna is here in one particular place, he wants to go here, the lotus just will close, and Krishna just pass to the other place, and the lotus open again. He will give that type of transrational logic. Or in other cases, he considered necessary to give other answers. But will go with these heady questions. Our Prabhupada will reply, "You are reading too much." Generally, he will say, "You have to read the books." But sometimes he will say, "You are reading too much." Of course, he was not against reading a lot or studying Shastra, but like saying, you are reading from the wrong side. You're getting trapped in your head too much and taking the lila and trying to pass it through the filter of your calculation. That's too much. It's not working. It won't fit there. Lila doesn't fit in your head. So this type of things. Okay.
Aber noch mit Samadhi. Wenn du einmal Samadhi erreicht hast, kommst du dann immer wieder in dieses Tor rein.
If you once reach Samadhi, do you always get through this door?
Through which door?
Like the end, like Samadhi is the entrance in the Bhagavatam because it's Samadhi Bhashya. So she's asking, when you once reach Samadhi, is the door, is all the doors constantly open?
Yes. Technically speaking, if you reach Samadhi per se as a goal to attain, Samadhi also means Samadhi. No? Dhi means meditation, Dhimahi, and Sam means complete. So like complete perfect meditation, control mind, and in our school will be perfect devotional focus, which comes out of love. No, we as Gaudias are not just trying to control the mind like a yogi or a jnani, but to activate the heart. That's a difference. One thing is control your mind, another thing is awaken your heart. Try to meditate about the difference of the two. And when the heart is fully awakened, if you will, activated, the mind follows. Mind follows the heart. As my Guru Maharaj said the other day when he was speaking about chanting. When we are chanting, the mind goes here, goes shopping everywhere. So how to control the mind? Try to chant from your heart. Try to connect with some sincere feeling corresponding to your stage and chant from there with honesty, humility, prayer, and naturally the mind will be captured. So the point, yes, if we attain devotional samadhi, there is no like coming back from there, if you will. And as you say very nicely, all the doors will be opening. Because of course attaining samadhi doesn't mean, as we already mentioned, only one type of revelation. There's so many layers and layers and layers and layers. So Vyasa revealed Srimad Bhagavatam in Samadhi, but as we are seeing these days, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they are revealing so much more through their own Samadhi. So again, Samadhi doesn't necessarily mean that I'm sitting, eye closed, not moving, I'm Samadhi. No? And if I'm moving, I'm not in Samadhi. Maybe in some schools, yogic schools, they will think Samadhi as that. No? Like stop moving, stop speaking. No? Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. All these stages. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam. But devotional Samadhi, as we mentioned the other day, is not so much about sitting still, but about waking up because you are so full and that's overflowing. You feel the need to celebrate.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you so much. Mahaprabhu is in Samadhi. But he's not generally like, oh. he doesn't seem like this typical sober sannyasis. He's like chanting and dancing and crying and rolling on the ground and eating a lot of prasad. So it's like, and many sannyasis of his time were confused. Like, he doesn't seem like a, I mean, he's sannyasi. He's not doing the things that the sannyasi should be doing. He's kind of an emotionalist, sentimentalist. But of course, when they get closer to his samadhi, these other sober sages, many of them had their own samadhi in more impersonal terms. For example, they were sprinkled by Mahaprabhu's samadhi. They will discover like a new samadhi, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Keshav Bharati, Prakashananda Saraswati. All these were very serious, grave, Advaitin practitioners, very fixed, very deep. But when Mahaprabhu was close to them, they would start like dancing like madmen along with him. That's samadhi also. But it doesn't seem like that. It seems like madness. But madness is a type of samadhi. Not any madness. Or better say, there are certain samadhi which will be a type of madness. When you are the madness of love, divine love. So again, externally it seems something else. So it's important that we pay close attention to understand what's actually taking place. Vaishnava kriya mudra vikneya nabo jaha. Now this means it's not easy to understand the movements of the Vaishnava. Externally, they may seem ordinary people, just doing the same thing that everyone is doing. They have grown a garden there and cooking and cleaning. Where's your samadhi? Externally, it seems like different, normal. But you pay attention to what's going on in their hearts and minds, and you're like, wow, what's that? That's a new samadhi. So it requires a special eye to appreciate this samadhi. That's a gift of Mahaprabhu. Srimad Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Gaur Gadadhar ji ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, ki jai, Shri Radha Govinda ji ki jai, Tribanga Prabhu ki jai. One question there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yesterday we missed the part of this Leela Smaranam that you would be reading because we were here and it was a little late. So maybe we can hear this today, plus the one.
That's the greedy of the last day, right? Since it's the last day, we can extract some extra. Okay? Yeah, why not? Let's conclude this session and we will go in that direction. So we'll conclude here.
have only tiny question. It's really a small one because you said you're not traveling with your organic garden, and I was just for my curiosity wondering if you're traveling with deities.
With deities?
Yes.
No, I'm not carrying deities. At least not in the form as we have them in the altar.
Okay.
But I'm carrying like a traveling altar, if you will, with pictures
Okay.
that somehow, in one sense, I try to make them non-different and from having the deities. Now that's the idea, the meditation. But yeah, it's too much traveling, and sometimes, at least in the dynamics of Ananda Dham, I wouldn't have time to attend the deities. So I'm trying to serve Thakurji through Harikatha and Vaishnav Seva here. Darshan of Gaur Gadadhar every day. So, but yeah, the pictures are their accompanying. Yeah. Okay. Sadhu Sangh ki jai. Gaur Pramanand Hari Om. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaur Hari Om.